I do recommend starting with one, but then going back to my just because it's just easier and more scalable. Just don't try and overdo it, because if you overdo it, you're going to get. It's already hard enough to show up every day consistently for an uncertain result. Don't make it any more difficult on yourself.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Bradley Rausch. Bradley's worked with over 250 solopreneurs and consultants within the past 5 years. He runs Level Up Influence, working with coaches and consultants in a CMO, COO capacity to help build their brand. So Bradley, like I mentioned, I just want to let you tell your story. It's going to sound much better in your words than me kind of reading off the bio. But first, thank you for coming on the show. I really am very excited to talk to you, very excited about this topic. So I have lots of questions, but I'll start with just a thank you. Thanks for taking the time out today.
Thank you, man. No, I appreciate it. It's gonna be good. Hopefully, I can be of some help.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, tell us about yourself. Tell us your background, kind of, what got you to this space, and let's just learn a little bit about you.
Yeah. So I'm 26. When I was 19, I kind of had the choice of, most people do, of college or figure out life in some other capacity. Went to college for exactly one semester and then dropped out because I was like, can't do that. Ended up working with some mentors, getting into kind of the high ticket coaching space. High ticket online, consulting, sales, if you will, that type of stuff. Found myself incredibly irresponsible, but also useful for experience, but incredibly irresponsibly in over $60,000 of credit card debt at the age of 20 from investing in mentors. Don't recommend that route, but did it, survived. It's all paid off, and worked with a bunch of mentors and got into programs and things like that, and eventually 21 or 22, I started working with a very large company at the time. They're no longer around, but a very large company at the time as a high ticket closer, and it was basically the epitome of the high ticket online sales and coaching industry. I won't share the name because they're shut down now, which you'll understand why in about 30 seconds. Worked with them, was in a sales capacity closer role, and I got to see the complete dark side of sales and psychology and even manipulation, if you call it that, and got completely, even to this day, there's some kind of remnants of that experience, completely scarred from that experience, and just how the clients were mistreated, how bottom line was prioritized over everything else. And it really just kind of showed me the dark side of the industry that I was in. And so left that, thankfully, and I jumped into client success, which means I kind of had to start over. So I started over, working within a couple companies, mentoring, working with mentors when companies, usually either in the realm of kind of, free work or, very kind of low pay work, things like that, just to kind of make my way and learn, get experience and things like that. And then slowly but surely over the last 3 or so years, it's pivoted into a kind of a quasi client success, but also personal branding and frontline kind of viral content development. I have a really big passion for content, specifically with like LinkedIn and how Instagram has kind of prioritized better connection over just kind of, the likes and the aesthetic and things like that. They're really doing a lot of stuff. And there's even apps like Inspo or Entra coming out that really are prioritizing high quality content. And that's been a really big passion that I've found and I'm really excited about. And so all of that to be said, what I currently do now is I work with, Jason, as you kind of said, I work with founder-led companies. Usually about half my clients are in the real estate space. The other half are in high ticket coaching, consulting, online coaching space, basically. And working with them usually on 3 things. Number 1 is systematizing client success to make sure clients have the absolute best experience, just something I'm insanely passionate about. Number two is taking that systematization of client success and turning that into viral worthy front end content, meaning taking your coaching moments, taking your, how you work with your team, how you nurture your team, what you're doing to solve problems with clients, client relations, like all those little interactions. People don't realize you can take that and move that into, front end content. Kind of think of like a Hermosi or a Gary Vee situation. All they do is sit there and record themselves coaching other people, and that's their content. And then the third thing is, by result of working directly with the founder, usually I'm able to come in and kind of help elevate the marketing team and the ops team to be able to remove the founder from a lot of the day-to-day stuff. And that way they get a little bit more of a visionary role. And I'll take over some of the more specific in the weeds. So that's where we end up today. So
it's really cool. And it, actually, probably one of the best. So let me back up just a second. We met through LinkedIn. That we had that Yona's LinkedIn challenge, and I think your content on LinkedIn is really good. In the reason is because of the way that you explain things, the way that you even just laid that out, and what you do with your clients is in a way that sort of resonates and makes it a little bit more simple for me to understand. Someone who is certainly, older generation. I didn't grow up with social media. Like it's pretty new to me in terms of my use, and then having to. I never wanted to be the face of anything. I never wanted to have my face on. I didn't really even like the idea of having a podcast. Is like, these are super uncomfortable things for me to have to be in that position. But it's clear to me that it's important. It's clear to me that from a business standpoint, there's a lot of value to that. So, when you're starting with someone new, like, what is where do you start from? Like, or maybe it's not the same for every person, but like, kind of what do you start with that process in trying to get, because step 3, you just said, where you're almost taking things over and letting them be the visionary. Are you suggesting that they're no longer the face of that branding and you remove them from it? Or is that they're still the face, but not having to create? But maybe just go in a little deeper on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's a great question. So as far as what I think the long game of content is building a personal brand. And I think it's really important that it's called a personal brand, and we identify that, because a lot of people will think, I can just post about my company. I can post about the thing, the accolades the company has gotten, and where, the company raised this, or the company, whatever. People buy from people, especially in a world of optionality that we have right now. And so it's like, the phrase always used to be, what, they have to have a touch point from you 7 times. It's probably up to 77 times by now. I don't know what it is, but it's probably crazy. So it's like getting that, making sure that it's a person on the other end, I think, is always important. And then, of course, making sure it's the same person. So I think long-term content and personal branding, it should, and I hope it will remain personal, just because I think that's such an important part. As far as, getting started from ground zero, there's a couple things. Actually, I love this question. There's a couple things that take people through. So one is we need to depressurize the idea of content. So many people will sit and think, I need to set aside 2 hours a day to film my content and to set up the camera and to make sure I have the right lighting, and I need to spend a boatload on all the equipment, and I need to make sure that I need to make sure I get a team scripting all the stuff, and do I need an editor, and do I need this and that, and da-da-da. And like, people will spend months, years, sometimes even, thinking about all this stuff and trying to plan it all before they actually get down to doing it. I built a 6-figure, my personal brand, that I've since transitioned into solely for my business, what I do, but I don't have a lot of hobbies. Business is kind of my thing. So I actually, 2 years ago, just for a proof of concept for myself, to show that I knew what I was doing, I built a 6-figure personal brand in the health coaching space. I lost a bunch of weight, very long story short, did it in kind of a unique, but also very, very healthy and whole food centered way. Started helping a couple other guys. I'm part of the LGBTQ community, so I helped a couple other guys in the LGBTQ community do it. Great success, and basically proof of concept for my own personal branding strategy, methodology, etc. And so then I kind of came back to the consulting stuff. So anyways, long story short, I built a 6-figure coaching company in a year with nothing but my iPhone. Like, it is not complex. It does not have to be bright, shiny, flashy, everything like that. Now, as for the how to get started, right? The big mindset shift I like to give people is documentation, not creation. So again, people think you need to sit down and create content. You need to find time in your calendar to create content. You have to set aside the bandwidth and the team and the resources and the money. No, just document what you're already doing. And I think that can sometimes be a really hard shift for people, because they're like, why are people going to be interested in seeing what I'm already doing throughout the day? It's boring, it's mundane, but it's not boring to everybody else. Like, a really good example, and my own podcast and my content, I reference one of my favorite human on the planet. Her name is Layla Hermosi. Her content has changed my life quite literally changed the course of my life. Just her free content she publishes everywhere. I recommend everybody go watch everything she has. And you'll understand why.
I support that.
Yeah, right. And something that she says, and I get this concept from her, so I can't take credit for the documentation concept, but the way that she explains it is, I could either sit down and I could take an hour out of my day to sit down and make a podcast on what makes a good finance meeting, or I could sit and just simply document the conversation I have with my CFO about where the company's going and what they're doing. And obviously, omit any sensitive information, but I just literally sit there, document it, film it, or maybe write down a couple notes from afterwards from the biggest learning lessons or things like that. Or hell, maybe even I go take a person, have them sit there, record with their iPhone, record our finance meeting, and we go post it. And again, it's a little different. You got to admit it's sensitive information and yada, yada, yada. But the point is, taking what you're already doing and leveraging that to the best of your ability. And I think that this is just, I'll give you another example. This is perfectly emulated in what a lot of people are doing, especially on platforms like Instagram and now LinkedIn with video. It's called B-roll posts. And I'm sure you'll know what I mean by this, which is, there's text on the screen, right? And it's point at the top, some sort of a hook, and then you've got, maybe 2 or 3 lines of text, right? And then it's maybe like a point down to the caption, like, here's how I do that or something, that very, very typical kind of influencers style post. But that's a perfect example of this concept. I personally know people who have made 7 figures off nothing but that kind of content, where they take themselves videotaping themselves walking down a hallway, typing at their computer, drinking a cup of coffee, and then they put text on the screen and then they post it. Like, I want you to depressurize the idea of content creation. And oftentimes that will come with a hard look at, like, well, why do I think it needs to be bright and shiny and fancy? Do I have perfectionist syndrome? Yes, most founders have perfectionism. Newsflash. But then once you get past that, just document what you're already doing. And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. So I think if you can just get your head around those two, and they are big mindset shifts. Like, it's hard for a lot of people. I'm actually working with a client right now, who his brand, he's a men's life coach. His brand is extraordinarily, the phrase he uses is, he'll say, I want to make sure that there's no dents in the Bentley. It's a very, 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 very upper echelon brand. They attract men who make multi-million dollars a year figuring out what they're doing with their life. It's a very, very, very upper echelon, very high quality brand, and it reflects so in their content. They want to scale their content. And that's why they brought me on. And it's like, listen, I'm fine with having no dents in the Bentley, but can we maybe, instead of a Bentley, can we do an Audi? Like, can we systematize the content to make sure that we can do this at scale instead of obsessing over every little tiny little piece? And so it's, like you said before we started recording, there's so much mindset into this. And so I think just identifying where your perfectionism is at, if it's there, which usually is, and then looking for examples of other people that you look up to and admire to see what kind of content they've made. And odds are it's not always going to be perfect. And so I think the documentation piece is just so huge for content.
Yeah. And I've heard Gary Vee's another one that he's similar, message of document, not in it. And it's funny. I've always, like, I hear that and I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense. Like, I get that concept, and I'm like, am I really supposed to have someone follow me around with a camera? Like, is that feels weird to me. Is that what you suggest? Is that, or you're like, just do a phone every once in a while? You really think someone should have a camera follow them around to create the strategy that you're really talking about?
I love this. I love this. Getting deeper into it. So there's a spectrum of ways you can go about this. On one end of the spectrum, let's call it the Alex Hormozy style. On one end of the spectrum, yes, you have somebody following you around with a camera. Yeah. You record your sales calls. They goes into post production and they edit out the confidential bits and then it gets posted, right? Like it's crazy. It's a lot of work. 99.9% of people I don't recommend that for. But that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, which I recommend people to start with, is you simply do something as easy as maybe it's a once a day cadence, maybe it's a once a week cadence, but I wouldn't recommend going any longer than that. But let's just say once a day. You review, at the end of the day, you set aside literally a 5-minute block, okay, to review your calendar from that day. And ask yourself these 3 questions. What challenges did I have to overcome today? What things, what did I do that was hard, basically? Because I don't want I answered the emails, I responded to something on Slack. Like yes, fine, nobody cares about that. But what was even slightly difficult about my day, right? Why was it difficult? And what am I going to do next time to make it easier? And you can also throw in things, of course, like, what am I going to teach somebody, or what did I teach somebody today? How did what was a tough conversation I had, things like that. But basically, where were the challenges, right? And you can take that 5-minute time, literally bullet point out 3 things from the challenge, and just answer those questions. What was the challenge? Why was it challenging? And then what did you learn from it? / what are you going to do differently next time? And that's literally it. That's a LinkedIn post. That's and a couple Instagram reels. That's maybe a short YouTube video. Now, of course, there's the time to put it together, but again, if we're talking on the very, very other end of the spectrum of like the lowest amount of possible effort put in, which I recommend for a lot of people to do to start out, like it's not a bad thing. You take those 3 bullet points, you just get in the habit of doing that at the end of your day. It takes 5 minutes, if that. Throw it into ChatGPT. You say, I want to write a LinkedIn post that emphasizes these 3 points about this experience that I had today. Here's another post that I really, really like, the form, the style, the content in it, the way that it flows. Take the style and take the format of this post and use it as a template for this. Don't have any of the information from this other post, but use it as a template for this. And boom, you got yourself a LinkedIn post, and then post it. And maybe throw in a meme or a photo or something like that, because LinkedIn posts with photos and videos always do better. But at the end of the day, there's a LinkedIn post that takes 15 minutes throughout your day. Post on LinkedIn for 6 months. You'll have a personal brand. You'll at least land a couple of clients from it. Like, it doesn't have to be. And then, of course, again, it's on a spectrum. So there's tiny little increment things that you can then do, of course, to kind of keep it moving, and go even more in depth. But the optionality is crazy.
It sounds so simple.
It is.
And then right. Well, that's where I'm going with it. Like, it sounds so simple, but the funny thing is, and it's like I keep fighting the simplicity of this. However, just looking at I am not an influencer, but if I look at like anything that's like my most viewed from a video or something like that has been just like the most views I ever got on one single thing was me trying to fix my broken air conditioner unit outside, like in the middle of the night, like just sitting there with essentially doing something completely wrong, but it was making the air conditioner run, and because I needed to get the house cooled off. And it was just like, I don't know, 10, 15 second video of like my hand on a thing. And like, I think that got over 100,000 views, which some people are like, that's not a lot. For me, that's like 100,000 more than usual. Like, and it's like, I was like, I don't get it. People are commenting. They're like, and in the, like, a lot of it's not good. It's like, you're an idiot. You're not supposed to do it that way. And I was like, that's the whole point. I know. But when I'm trying to get my family to have a house that's like bearable to sleep in, it worked. So it's true that like that like documentation of just like normal life really does seem to resonate with people. But also, for me, a lot of it anyway, maybe this is for other people or not, but for me, it's just like, I don't remember to just pull out my phone and film everything I'm doing or whatever. And I think that, like, so I like what you laid out there with that, taking some things at the end of the day and just, sort of spending a targeted block of time to kind of create a post or 3 posts or whatever, it turns out to be, that truly are sort of documenting, they may not be documenting at that moment, but documenting, kind of what happened in your day. And I think it's probably the question was like, how do you, tell people to get started? So I do think that's probably a really good starting point, is just doing simple things like that, which again is why I like your content, because you lay it out there in like a simple, usable way.
And it's funny you bring up the video that performed really well for you, because you didn't expect that to perform well. You're like, I look on the face, you're like still shocked about it. This is usually, I would say, within a couple months of working with people, they come to the realization, and sometimes they'll catch them before it does, and we have to have the come to Jesus talk. But other times they'll come to it themselves, where you can't fall in love with your content. You can't make, whether it's written, video, I don't care. You can't. It's not personal. Your content, yes, writing it is personal, but once you send it out into the www, it's not personal anymore. Nothing that happens from that point on has anything to do with you, and you have to sever that tie sooner than later. Otherwise, emotionally, it's gonna f you over. But you can't fall in love with any of your. You can like your stuff. You can be like, oh, I like that post, but you can't be like, oh, I'm bent out of shape that post didn't do well, because that's going to keep you up at night, and it's not worth it. So. So you can go and you can create the amazing things. Like that same person I was just telling you about, the really high end upper echelon men's coach. You were just talking this morning, and he was like, "Oh, maybe I should start making like 45-minute, 60-minute long YouTube videos." And I'm like, "Don't even put in the effort. It's not worth right now for the brand. It's not worth the effort, because you're going to pour your heart and soul into it." And we're still growing the YouTube channel. So his YouTube, we've only been posting for like a month. His YouTube only gets like 1,000 views per video. It's not worth it right now. If you were Mr. Beast and you have 500 million, yeah, sure, absolutely, obsess over every detail, but it's not worth it, because things like going out to your air conditioning unit, things like going out to your air conditioning unit and fixing it get 100,000 views. So it's not worth, yes, the content needs to be quality, of course, but there is a level after which it doesn't make sense anymore to obsess about it. And I think that's just a really hard kind of mental corner to turn sometimes.
So that's the starting point. You mentioned something that I've done. It's like, oh, get out, go get it. Like, I have a drone. I've never used it. I took it out of the box. That's as far as it ever. I was like, I'll be able to make content with this. Like, I have, what's it called? A gimbal? Is that the little stick?
Yep.
Yeah. I was like, I have one of those. I can't even, like, I can barely use it. So I like, I've done that stuff. I've gone down the rabbit hole, like trying to, if I have the best stuff. But again, it's like the things that seem to resonate are much more just natural, I guess. Like, you don't have to have perfect lighting. You don't have to have, perfectly smooth video and all of that. Is there a mix that you think makes, like, I'm imagining if you were just posting videos, because if you're just posting videos like me on the air conditioner all the time, like, that's not going to probably fly either. Do you feel like there's a mix between the sort of natural documentation versus like a little bit more produced type of content, or do you have a theory on what works that way?
Yeah, so it's the way I look at it is kind of an equilibrium. So when people get started, again, it's usually this like perfectionist tendency of wanting everything, all the fancy equipment and yada yada, and also being very perfectionist about the output of it. I think once you break that, and once you can actually say, okay, listen, I know that the content is good. I know that the point I'm trying to make is good. It's effective. It resonates with my audience. Beyond that, if I have a slight glitch at the beginning of the video because the audio was, or the video was turning on, or if I have a slight glitch in the audio because it was a whatever, or if one of the words in my captions that are popping up on the screen isn't correct. If you can actually be okay with, not just say it, but be okay with those little imperfections in your content, that means that you're ready to do it at a scalable rate, which means that investing time into getting the gimbal and the drone or the better lighting or whatever you want to do, however you want to, whatever the next step is, that means that you're actually going to be okay with doing that, because content will never be perfect. But the reason most people start and stop, and we'll just call it kind of kind of fall on their sword with content creation is because they expect it to be perfect when they first get started. Once you can break that expectation, it really opens up the opportunity for you to do it at a scalable rate, which is imperfect. So document first, get used to the fact that it's never going to go exactly the way that you wanted it to. And once you're finally over that, then great, invest some time into actually then creating content, because you're going to be okay with whatever the return of it is. And you won't be butthurt about the fact that I just spent $1,500 setting this setup and my first video on YouTube only did 150 views, or my LinkedIn post only got 2 likes. Again, you can't be butthurt about that. That's not scalable.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Do you feel, I've heard, there's a lot of different opinions out there on this. Do you feel that like time of day, frequency, like the sort of rules about when to post and all of that, do you think that really matters, or do you think it's just kind of getting stuff out there? Like, is volume better? I just feel like, and this is going to lead into my next question about the talk of algorithms, but like, do you feel that there's a kind of a right way to do that I guess frequency, whatever you want to refer to there, but is there a right schedule of events that happen in social media?
No, awesome question. And obviously super valid. My again, like you said, there are tons of opinions out there on this, and I see posts every single day as I scroll the feed. It's like, oh my God, if you post at 7:02, you'll get 100,000 views, and all I can tell you is what I do and what's worked for me. So as to the specific part about posting at a particular time, I don't do that. I've posted things at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock at night, and 3 a.m. in the morning, and there's been no significant change or drop off in what happens in terms of engagement. As far as consistency, I think is very important. The way that I like to describe it, again, especially to people at the very beginning who kind of need that expectation check on reality of like what this content is actually going to do and what it's going to be like when you first get started. The way that I like to say it is commit to posting at a frequency and a consistency that rain, shine, sickness, tornado, death, you will never be able to go under. You will never allow yourself to go under. And sometimes that means 1 a week. Like sometimes that means it's like, yes, my schedule is nuts. I really want to do this. It's important. I can commit to 1 a week. I can't do 2, but I can do 1. That's awesome. Do you know how many people want to create content but don't? You're automatically ahead of all those people if you can just do something once a week. And then once you get used to that, it's kind of like an exercise. It's kind of like a progressive overload in the gym for anybody who works out. Like, you have to get used to that. You have to do those reps until you get comfortable with it, until rep 8, rep 9, when before it was like, oh my God, I'm rep 8. It's horrible. It's awful. I'm dying. It's like, no, I can go to rep 10 with this and I'm actually not dying till rep 11 or 12. That's how you know it's time to increase the weight. Same with content. Once you can do 1 and you're posting the 1 for this week and you're already starting to think about what next week's post is, and you're like, ooh, I think I can do this. And you get it kind of written and you're like, my post is already done for this week. Then it might be time to bump it up to 2, and et cetera. So commit to something probably under what you're currently thinking, because you're like, oh my God, well, Hormozy posts 4.5 times a day. That's what I need to do too. No, yeah. Let's start with 4 a week, maybe, or 4 a month. Like, let's start there and let's build up some consistency there, because And I don't just say that, and I know I'm kind of being funny about it. I do genuinely say that seriously for 2 reasons. One, on the emotional, mental side of things, you build up the proof and the evidence that you can actually do it, and you kind of over time have that quote unquote responsibility to yourself, right? And that has to be built. On a technical side, and like you said, kind of on the algorithm side, the platforms do reward consistency. If you were to post just 1 time a week on any platform, are you going to scale as fast as somebody who's doing 1 a day or 3 a day? No, you won't. That's just pure function of math scale. No. But within a period of time, yes, we're talking months, possibly a year, 2, you will have outsized returns on that content, even if you just stay once a week for the rest of your life, because the platform rewards consistency. It doesn't necessarily matter as much what the consistency is, more that you are consistent. So pick a frequency that you can stay at, never go under that, and then slowly but surely build up the frequency over time. And when I say never go under that, and I joked about, even if you die, can you take vacations? Yes, of course. But try and plan out your content beforehand. Like, factor in that the algorithm never takes a vacation. If this is important to you, plan out your content before. If you post 3 times a week on LinkedIn, great. You're going on vacation next week, write 6 posts this week, schedule them to post next week. Done. Easy. Like, don't overpromise to yourself and then underdeliver. Underpromise to yourself and then with time overdeliver.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. The algorithm is people throw that out there all the time. The algorithm likes this and whatnot. I have to assume that it changes because I feel like people say different things are important. Like there was a time when I feel like people were saying you should post as many times a day as you possibly can on Instagram or whatever. And then it was like, no, you just want to do 1 a day. And I'm saying this like this is what people have told me. I don't, who knows? But I guess my question behind that is how do you know? How do you know that? Like, how does, like, this is what you do for a job, and presumably that's what other people who are selling this service to people also do as a job. But I'm always like, how do you know? And then sometimes I feel like people that coach people in the content production space are saying different things. And so I'm like, is there a place to go look and see what the algorithm wants? Like, is that posted somewhere like Google? Hey, what is the algorithm like right now? Like, I don't know how people even figure that out. And again, like I told you before we even started, some of my questions are going to be dumb. And this is probably a dumb question.
No.
I truly don't understand like how to know what the algorithm wants.
That's not a dumb question at all. Just a flat out answer. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. And I'm absolutely okay with saying that. I could be completely off on it. Maybe the algorithm does want you to post 4.5 times a day. And if you don't post 4.5 times a day, you will get significantly lower outcome. I don't know. What I do know is this. I have to think about things both for myself and my personal content, but for my clients from a matter of scale. What I do know is that if I can get them to commit, and if I can set up systems where the conditions are made easy for them to commit to, let's just keep going with the example of one a week. Let's say somebody is insanely busy and literally all they have time for is 1 a week, even with my help. I know for a fact that them creating 1 LinkedIn post per week will get them better returns in 3 years. Because we're not talking about days, we're talking about weeks, maybe months, but let's like do the long tail of this, years. So at scale, I know that will get them better returns, outsized returns in 3 years at a way larger factor versus them dilly-dallying for 6 months, spending $2,000 on all the equipment and trying to buy all the stuff and setting it up, making 1 post, maybe even sitting down for a weekend and just smoking a bowl and doing a bunch of posts. And then they post them and it doesn't go anywhere, and then they get unmotivated and then they never post again. Or they're super sporadic about it. Or it's the person who they only do it when they have free time, right? Or they only do it when it's like, oh, it's a free weekend, I can finally post a piece of content, and then they don't do anything again for 4 months. Even if all those little sporadic times of posting content, even if that added up to more quantity than, 52 weeks, so we're 156, I think, if I'm doing my math right. Even if that added up to them doing more than 156 posts and the quantity was larger, I would bet every single dollar I have on the person who posts once a week consistently. Because again, not only does it stay true, you stay consistent with yourself and you kind of build that brand with yourself and the trust in yourself, but you kind of teach your audience what to expect, and you will grow an audience over time. Again, will it be slower than the person who's posting once a day? Absolutely. But it will happen. And so to answer your question purely, it's impossible to know what the algorithm wants. If somebody finds, I'll say this, if somebody finds a place, Google, some AI hidden thing that will tell you exactly what the algorithm wants, I will give you my phone number. Please call me. I will pay you. Tell me. But until then, I have no idea. I just have to think about what is the balance between staying motivated to do content, staying interested in doing content, and doing it at a rate in which it doesn't, disrupt what you're already doing in your business, and making sure that it's kind of reflective of what your other priorities are. Because like I'm not asking, I would never ask somebody to do something that they weren't willing or couldn't do or couldn't fit in their schedule, right? It's the balance of being respectful of that, plus figuring out where and how you can show up.
Yeah, and the consistency thing is probably the one. Consistency's been consistent. That's probably the one thing that I feel like I've heard from multiple different people in the space that coach others on, content creation, like that consistency is the number one thing. But also some people talk about the algorithm like it's their roommate. Like they're like, the algorithm says like they just had a conversation with it. And I'm like, but nobody seems to actually have like access to, like, I don't know anybody who works at Meta, you know what I mean? Like so I always wonder, like, where are these things coming from in terms of saying, this is what the algorithm wants. But it makes a whole lot more sense to me that nobody knows and we're just figuring it out and seeing what works. And I'm fine with that answer. I just don't want people to pretend that they know something that isn't actually known, Yeah.
The only thing that that I will say to that, because I mean, genuinely, again, like I stand by, I have no idea, and I don't know anybody who has any idea. But the only thing that I will say to that might just help contextualize it for you and for others is there absolutely are people that are running content for themselves and others, creating it, whether it's just organic content or paid content, at such a volume that they can spot trends well before it's like widely accepted and widely adapted. And I've had a couple mentors, like that, literally running hundreds of millions of dollars of paid Meta ads, and they'll be able to spot trends a couple months before it actually pops out, and you see it on the ads and people talking about on the ads from the Facebook coaches. Oh, here's a new trend. Da, 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 da. It's like, yeah, okay, we knew about that 3 months ago. Like, that is absolutely a real thing. So if it's someone like that, or maybe even, I don't know, somebody who, is on the inside of Meta, is on the inside of TikTok, is, whatever, that might also be a thing as well. I can't speak to what others are saying, what others are doing. I just got to go with, again, I think what makes it easiest to show up day in and day out for an uncertain result. What are the conditions under which it makes that easiest to do continually?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think there's a, I guess, best platform, or maybe it depends on what you're trying to do, but do you feel like there's, I mean, some people are like, pick one platform and go all in. Some people are like, you should do everything across everything. I mean, but do you think certain platforms work better for certain, I don't know, businesses, whatever you're trying to do? Do you have thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. So, if you are somebody who has no traction on any platform, LinkedIn or Instagram are your two best bets. And I say LinkedIn first because 80% of cases, I'm going to say LinkedIn. If you are B2B, absolutely no question, LinkedIn. If you are B2C and you have a higher ticket product, you have something that could even be a B2B service, I would go LinkedIn. If you're B2C and you're selling, I don't know, branded t-shirts with a certain, branded logo thingy on it for $14.95. That's Instagram. If you're e-commerce or anywhere in that kind of realm, that's Instagram. Or if you're a much more kind of aesthetic brand, that's Instagram. But I'll be honest, the platform I'm most excited about in 2025 is absolutely LinkedIn. They added the video tab in not only the phone, not only mobile, but in desktop. And I have actually, okay, here we go. So I have spoken with somebody on the inside. One of my friends is a creative director at LinkedIn. So I have spoken with her, and they are pushing out video content by a factor of 2 times over written content moving into 2025. And that will probably continue to increase. And they're, of course, doing that to, compete with platforms like Instagram and TikTok that are basically all video, right? TikTok is, Instagram is basically all video now. And so it creates a really amazing opportunity for content creators to move over, yes, from Instagram over to LinkedIn, but also people who have been posting on LinkedIn for years who have never done video. It's like, great, now I can do I can do video now if they're willing to step out of the bubble and get uncomfortable and do video. But the point is, I'm absolutely excited about LinkedIn. I think, to answer your question then about which platforms or how many or things like that, I do recommend starting with one, but then going back to my just because it's just easier and more scalable. Just don't try and overdo it, because if you overdo it, you're going to get. It's already hard enough to show up every day consistently for an uncertain result. Don't make it any more difficult on yourself. Don't be like at the start of it trying to be like, oh, I'm going to post on 5 different platforms every single day. Don't do that. Pick one. Again, build up the trust and the consistency with yourself, 30, 60, 90 days, something like that. And then, you've got options. Let's say you're posting once a week, right? Going back to that example. And you're like, okay, I have a little bit more bandwidth, or this isn't so hard anymore, or I don't have to think as long to write my content anymore. Okay, great. I have a little bit more effort to put into this. Maybe that means that extra effort goes into reposting whatever you're doing on one platform onto another. That's absolutely another way of expanding. It doesn't have to be more quantity on the same platform. And there's a lot of factors that kind of go into that decision, but there's several different ways to kind of branch out and grow, from there. And you just have to find what works best for you and is most sustainable for you. But again, I reference you back to whatever you commit to doing it and stay consistent with it. So,
yeah, I feel like we got insider information on that. Was pretty cool to know. Someone at LinkedIn. That's exciting. No, I mean, like I said, I appreciate what you put out there for content, because I do feel like it all makes sense. It also, in that framed that way, it also, I think, seems doable for people who want to create content. I think the video thing, for people like me is more daunting than being able to just put words or a picture or whatever, like. Because video, sure, you might have some videos of things around, but like now you're talking about actually getting on there and doing something or saying something. So it gets a little bit more intimidating, but also, like you said earlier on, is just the being natural, being kind of that documentation rather than creation maybe takes some of the pressure off. So I really do think that makes a lot of sense. Bradley, I want to make sure we have time so I can get to ask you all the questions I ask every guest. I probably have a million other questions on content creation and branding, so may have to have you come back at some point, but I won't keep you all day long. The first question I ask every guest is based on the name of the show, being Know Your Why. So what is your why? What, you've had a lot of success already. What keeps you kind of excited and motivated and moving forward?
Oof. It's interesting. I feel like first thing that went through my thought is I was like, shit, everybody that comes on his show probably just was able to give like an immediate one-word answer to that. And here I am going to fumble. It's really interesting. Very, 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 very long story short. I've just moved to New York City about a year ago on a very, very much kind of a self-discovery, self-challenge journey. And it's been amazing. It's been so much fun. It's been hard, but it's been very worthwhile. And something that seeps into a lot of my content that I'm really leaning into, I would say in the last specifically 6 to 12 months, that feels so good, is a lot more of the emotional resiliency mindset, even things like, looking at like anxiety and behavior patterns within the realm of entrepreneurship. That entirely lights me up. I think that is just, yes, for a job, I help founders with, client success and marketing. Yeah, that's what I do. But I'll be honest with you, I think that pales in comparison to having the self-confidence and the self-trust and the emotional resiliency to know that at the end of the day you've got your own back and you've got that relationship with yourself. And so my developing why, for the moment, is my end goal is I want to be speaking on a stage about something like that. I think there's so much, and the reason I'm doing what I'm doing other than to pay the bills is I think there's so much that intertwines with that, and I think it creates a really good opportunity, especially through my content. As I grow the business, and some clients don't need any of that, but I like to think that hopefully as time goes on, I can attract more and more people to work with, or just to know in general who I can be on that level with and can speak with like that, and that I can help them in that way and they can help me in that way. And working through some of that deeper stuff. And so that's kind of the opportunity that I am most excited about chasing these days. So
I love it. There's no wrong answer to that question.
Okay.
Don't please. Sometimes people are like, I don't know if I have the right answer. And I'm like, no, like literally no wrong answer to that. It doesn't.
The thing that was going through my mind is like, I don't know, interviewing somebody on like Hugh Rubin podcast, and he asked like some deep question and they have this like one word answer. And then it's like, oh yeah, I really feel that. I'm like, I don't have that. So
no one word. No. It's actually like, I feel like it's a hard thing to answer with one word, but yeah, no wrong answers for sure. And I love it. I think that the hard side of entrepreneurship needs more attention. Probably is it just that? Yeah, there is some. This could be a whole nother podcast episode, but I mean, there truly is a need for that, I think, in the space, and I think it's nice that people are starting to talk about it a little bit more too. Like, and even Layla Hermosi, we talked about her. Like, she talks about, that it's hard, and she does it anyway. Like, that's but like acknowledging that it is hard, and that that the, I guess, acceptance of that, and then, but also you need to find ways to deal with it. And I think that's kind of the real thing is whether that's talking to someone, whether it's exercise. That's, for me, that's how I deal with it. But I think it's just, there's a lot to be said for leaning into that and creating a space through your content, or if you're on stage, where people can resonate and sort of empathize with that, and just because they're going through it too. So I think it's actually really a cool thing to be growing. So that's really neat. When people hear this and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way? How should they get in touch?
LinkedIn, funny enough. But yeah, I post daily content on LinkedIn, probably 50-50 between business and tactics behind that and how I help my clients and things. And then there are 50 on, as I said, more just mindset. And I actually I have a lot of content that I've been leaning into just in terms of kind of the emotional resiliency piece and entrepreneurship, but also a lot of things coming from the LGBTQ community and a lot of like unique perspectives with that and how that overlaps. And so that's it's kind of, I gotta be honest, it's an absolute mess, but it's there. But I've really found a passion with LinkedIn, so that's where I encourage everybody to go. So I can I'll send you the link to it. And
we'll get the link.
Bradley Rausch.
Exactly, we'll get the link for people to find you in the show notes. And as I've mentioned, I can personally attest. I enjoy your content very much, and I think, again, because you explain things in a way that I think are easy to understand and relatable. So thank you for coming on the show and doing it here. I appreciate it. I appreciate having you as a guest, and I look forward to continuing the conversations.
You bet, man. Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Yeah. And folks listening, make sure you connect with Bradley. We'll get that his LinkedIn in the show notes. And please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get more great guests. And thank you all for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?